don't know who he is. So when we read the bio a little bit, or what you think? And that's get a little bit. I graduated from Baltimore City Public Schools, so bad, but. All right, here it is. Umar Johnson is a nationally recognized certified school psychologist who gives lectures around the country. As a school psychologist and child therapist, he is recognized as a national expert on learning disabilities and their impact on the education of Black children. He is also renowned for providing strategies to schools and parents for modifying difficult behaviors in African American children. So, I already practiced them with the bull stuff at the college, so they know all that. Okay, there it is though. This is what I didn't say to y'all. So when I called Dr. Johnson this weekend and let him know about what was going on, the controversy at my college, this is what he said to me. This is the man that you're looking at. He said this: "You find me a place and I'll come for free." Boom. You hear that? All right.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming out. It's an honor to be here. We're kind of wrapping up Black History Month 2015, a very pivotal Black History Month for all of us because this is our 150th year since our so-called emancipation. 150 years since the end of slavery, 150 years since the 13th Amendment. So we've been through a lot. We've been through an awful lot in this past century and a half. And honestly speaking, I think we're going to go through a whole lot more before it's all over with. Okay, before it's all over with, we're going to go through a whole lot more. I study Ifa, which is the spiritual system practiced by the Yoruba of Nigeria in West Africa. And in Ifa, every year, there is a particular power or energy, divinity as we would say, that governs that upcoming year. And so when the year comes in, or just before it comes in, the priests and priestesses, they gather to do that divination for the foregoing year. And so for 2015, what the divination had revealed was that two very militaristic, two very powerful divinities are going to orchestrate and oversee 2015. One of those divinities is named Oya. Many of you are familiar with that. It is a female energy of war. It is a female energy of wrath, but it is also a female energy that travels with the ancestors, and it is a female energy that blesses the marketplace, which means that if you are someone who has a business or you're thinking about going into business, it might not be a bad idea to get it done this year because that energy is overseeing it. If you're someone who has been thinking about communing with your ancestors and you haven't done that yet, but they've been calling you, this would be a good year to do that. The other divinity is Shango, one of the most popular divinities of them all. And when we speak of these divinities, which is a compound word for divine entities, we're simply talking about a certain manifestation of the one God consciousness. So don't get spooked out when you hear about all these divinities. When the Europeans came into Africa, they falsely described these different principles of God as several different competing gods. And that's where you get the word gods from. Africans believe in a whole bunch of gods. That's not true. We believe in one God, but that one God wears many faces, including every face sitting here right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And so Shango, come on in, family. And so Shango also is a deity of war, but he's also a deity of masculine energy and power. And I think we can use that energy right now with all of the unmasculine activities going on. The Shango energy is also an energy of business, leadership, organization. So for those of you who are thinking about doing something positive for the community, now would be a good time to start that as well. But I'm bringing this up because these two energies, when they come together, it normally is a forecast for drama. It is a forecast for drama. So in 2015, there's going to be a lot of drama on the local level, personal level, international level, family level. Okay, there's going to be more war, there's going to be more death, there's going to be more disaster, there's going to be more tragedy. That's what comes with these two Orisha. But what is important for you to understand is that these tragedies are not intended to bring us harm collectively as a people. They might bring you harm individually, but collectively they're designed to destroy the evil in the world, to destroy the evil that has been ruling this earth for so long so that righteousness can be ushered in. Okay? So in African spirituality, one of God's properties is wrath. One of God's properties is destruction. Every once in a while, you got to come in and destroy what is there to usher in a new age. So I don't think it's a coincidence that these two warrior Orisha, these two warrior powers, these two warrior divinities are ruling 2015, which happens to be our 150th year, sister, in slavery.
Right.
I think I take all that to mean that we're about to change the tide.
That's right.
We're about to come full circle. But I want to warn you, coming full circle doesn't mean you sit and wait for God to do the work.
That's right.
Coming full circle means you have to also take the initiative. And that's one of our biggest weaknesses as African people. Slavery gave us an internal locus of control. It gave us go ahead and invite the visitors in. It gave us an internal locus of control. Now I see two sisters standing over here. I see three here. Okay, brothers, we need to accommodate. Okay.
All right.
Sister in the back, you want to see? Brothers, let's accommodate the queen. I know the feminist movement says it's illegal to ask a woman if she wants to say. That is a form of sexist paternalism.
All right. I have a seat up here. I have a seat right here, one of my ladies.
Well, we're going to do that anyway.
We have two seats in the front, and I have a seat right here. Okay? All right.
All right. Excellent. Thank you for that, brothers. And that's important too, because I think one of the things that we're going to have to go back to as a people as we move forward in this 2015 year, and that is restoring the black woman to her respectful place in our community. I think our children, especially our boys, need to see our women put on a pedestal, gentlemen. And when we say put our women on a pedestal, it doesn't just mean, quote unquote, those who deserve it. Because I often hear brothers say, I would treat a woman how she treats herself. I disagree with that. You should treat a woman based on how she should treat herself. I think all black women should be elevated. Because maybe in the respect that you give her, that might influence her enough to turn around and respect herself if she doesn't already. So brothers and sisters, this is our year right here. I think this is it right here. You know, it happens to be my 40th, so I need to see something happen. Okay? But we got to come together, we got to organize, we got to stop fighting over petty differences. That's very, very important, extremely important, that we understand that although we all have our religious ideologies and our political ideologies, none of them should govern how we relate to other African people, okay? I have brothers and sisters from the Moorish Science Temple who I work with. I got brothers and sisters from the Nation of Islam. I got Nuwapian brothers and sisters. I got Guys and Earths brothers and sisters. I got brothers and sisters from every walk of like Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. That doesn't mean that I'm on the same square with everyone in those different orders, but it does mean that we can't judge a book by its cover. You have many brothers and sisters in any ideology who are very tolerant and respectful of other ideologies, but then you got some who are dogmatic and very Eurocentric in their approach to their particular philosophy, who feel that you got to basically get down or lay down. That's right. Okay? And that's not African. Very few wars were fought in Africa over religion. Very few wars were fought in Africa over religion. We appreciate and we embrace diversity of spirituality because everybody's path is unique. Everybody's path is their own. You cannot dictate how someone relates to God, okay? And we're so used to people dictating how we relate to God because of the dominance and the basic two-religion dictatorship of Islam and Christianity in our lives. And nothing wrong with either of those religions, but it's important to understand there's ways of seeing the world outside of the Judeo-Christian Islamic patriarchal perspective. And that sometimes it's good for us to check back in with that African perspective, because with most African spiritualities, they are either androgynous, balanced between male and female, or they're more loaded on the female. Okay, you got to recognize that in African mysteries, when you become a priest or a priestess, that energy that descends on you is a very feminine energy that's responsible for you being able to develop your clairvoyant ideas, okay? So in African spirituality, the female principle is very important. It is extremely important. As important, if not more so, than the male. For example, if you look at a lot of West African artwork, and if you see different Orishas in West African artwork, you might see a big statue of Shango, a big statue of Ogun, a big statue of Eshu Elegba, but you always see what? Normally with these statues, you normally see 1 or 2 women on each shoulder, or women right by the side, or sometimes there's a woman right behind. And sisters, that doesn't mean a woman is inferior. It means she's the secret backing him up. So it's important that you understand in our spirituality that female principle is key. In most African kingdoms, even though you have a king that runs the kingdom, no one ever tells you that the queen mother has greater say than the king of the village. And it's important to keep that in mind. That lady isn't just sitting there for ceremonial purposes like Michelle Obama. No, she can actually say, I don't agree with you. And if she doesn't agree with the king, he has to go back and reconsider his decision. Nothing goes over in African culture without the queen mother. And that's why in Kemetic science, righteousness, Ma'at, is symbolized by the female energy. Okay, so we got to bring that female principle back. We got this thing that we done picked up with a black man fighting against a black woman. He wants to blame her for everything. She wants to blame him for everything. Our culture is based on complementarity. Our culture is based on the balance of opposites. That's how harmony is fostered in our world, in our life, in our community, in our family. A masculine element, a feminine element. Perfect balance. It's like you're on a seesaw. You weigh 150 pounds or more, the other person need to weigh 150 pounds or more, and y'all balance each other. For every yin, there's a yang. Inside of every atom of existence, there's a what? A positive charge and a negative charge. Okay? Now, because I have taken issue with the fact that some people want to recreate our culture, okay, and they now want to see 2 positive charges or 2 negative charges. I say, well, as African people, we don't agree with that because our culture is based on complementarity. And we don't believe in upsetting the natural order of things. We understand that man and woman are brought together by the supreme ruler of the universe to reproduce ourselves into eternity. When a man and a woman have relations, they are reproducing themselves into eternity. And anything that stops that natural harmony is abnormal. Anything that stops it is abnormal. And so what happens now in American society, if you disagree with any of the lifestyles that are now being practiced that are counter to traditional African family system, you are deemed a hater of the people who practice the lifestyle. Now, I don't agree with homosexuality, okay, because it is against African culture. But I've never advocated hate nor harm for any homosexual or lesbian. It is interesting because up until the LGBTQ movement, you were allowed to disagree with anything in America. That's right. If you were Muslim, it was okay to disagree with Christians. If you were Democrat, it was okay to disagree with the Republicans. If you was a woman, it was okay to disagree with the male agenda and vice versa. But now all of a sudden, we've come to the first social issue in American history. The first social issue in American history where you're not allowed to have an opinion. You're not allowed to have an opinion. Counter to that the government is pushing. Okay? And it's important that we keep in mind that we are not here to infringe upon anyone's human rights. But we unapologetically reserve the right to stand for what we think is wrong and stand for what we think is not in the best interests of African people. Everything for me is judged against what is the long-term consequence of this for my people. Personally, do I agree with it? No, but that's not important. What's most important, the free propagation of same-sex relationships in the African-American community with particular focus on our children in the long term. Is that going to serve us or is that going to hurt us? If you got a situation already where 1 out of every 4 black women gets married in America as it is, does the free promotion and advocacy of same-sex relationship, what is that doing to black family structure? What is that doing to the black household? What is that doing to our sisters who want marriage, and now you have this reducing even more available men on the market? Okay? This is a gentleman I knew growing up. He was a close friend to a member of my family. He was homosexual. He's dead now. He died of AIDS. I had someone in my family who I loved very much. He was homosexual. He died of AIDS. In my work as a therapist, I come across so many black men who are homosexual, who are infected with the AIDS virus. Because you're gay, that means you have AIDS? I'm not saying that. But if you look at the statistics coming from the National Institute of Health, it clearly shows that that lifestyle intensifies the likelihood of you contracting the disease for 2 reasons. Number one, your anus is a direct route to your bloodstream. So if you're laying with another male and if he is infected, the chances of you being infected is almost automatic because of the route of transmission. Number 2, because the government created, and I can prove it. That's right. And I wish the college would have invited me to debate the issue on whether or not I would have accepted a debate on either of my positions, on homosexuality being nurture over nature, or AIDS being nature over nurture. The evidence and proof is overwhelming that the disease was created a few miles from where you sit right now. Okay? And not just white scientists, but black scientists. Scientists all over the world have concluded that this was a man-made concocted virus to eliminate African people off the face of the earth. Here's my issue, brothers and sisters. Only in a society governed by lies, only in a society governed by lies is the truth controversial. Only in a society governed by lies. In fact, I had thought most people had already came to the conclusion that AIDS was man-made. I've heard elected members of Congress say that AIDS was man-made. I didn't know that was still controversial. Now, I knew LBGT was because it's a new thing. But I didn't know AIDS was still controversial for you to claim that it was of a man-made origin. If anyone want to do further reading, I can direct you to 2 books. And since we got some chalk up here, and I always love having some chalk, I'll write them up here. Okay? One of them is called State Origin. If you want to read a good book on the human creation of AIDS, State Origin. This was written by a black man who I met. His name was Boyd Graves. I met him in New York at the Black African Holocaust Conference. He was a black homosexual officer in the Navy or Air Force who contracted AIDS, which put him on a path to investigate the origin of it. He's dead now, murdered by the FBI, because he was going to take the United States government to the World Court, okay, Office of Human Rights, and he was going to file charges against the United States for creating a disease that intentionally and forcefully would remove African people from the face of the earth. If you get his book, State Origin, in the inside, he has a flow chart that you're going to open up. It's about this wide. Guess what it is? It's the flow chart that shows the progression of the development of the creation of AIDS from its inception all the way out to its release. And guess where he found it at? Library of Congress. These are not conspiracy theories. There's evidence and proof to back this up. The United States government admitted back in the 1970s that it had a biological disease that selectively killed certain groups of people. That was admitted. So how do you say somebody's making up a conspiracy theory? Because white supremacy controls what's true and what's not. That's right. It controls what's false and what is not. What is the definition of power, brothers and sisters? It is the ability to define reality and make somebody believe it. That's what power is. To tell black folk you're free when you're still a slave and make you believe it. That's power. to tell you you've been educated because you got a bachelor's degree and make you believe it, although you still know nothing. That's an hour. And that's why I want to build the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. I got some good news when I was in Milwaukee yesterday. Got a phone call that one of the former presidents of St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia, and we haven't given up on St. Paul's, although we wish they would stop selling off pieces of the property. They just sold off the bleachers on the football field. So we have a football team, people got to sit on the ground. But anyway, one of the past presidents of St. Paul's College wants to have a meeting with me because he feels that he has a way in which we can finance the school. Okay, something that he wants to do as well. So this is a former president of St. Paul's College, so God willing, I'll be talking and meeting with him soon to see how we can get that school. Something else I want y'all to know right now. So I want y'all to stay focused on my social network. When we started the fundraiser back in May 20 for $2 million to buy St. Paul's, we actually started it at $5 million because we wanted enough money to rehab the property. We dropped it to $2 million to basically just acquire the property. From May the 20th to February the 20th, which is the day that Frederick Douglass left this earth and the day before Malcolm left this earth, in those 9 months, we raised about $260,000. And of course, I picked up some more donations yesterday that I have to deposit. So we're just under $300,000, but it took us 9 months to get there. At that pace, we're looking at what, 7 years before we can buy the school? We don't have 7 years, okay? That 7-year-old boy might be in Juby Hall by his 14th birthday. We ain't got 7 years. So what I'm going to do is something I didn't want to do, and that was crowdfunding. And the reason I didn't want to do crowdfunding is because you know when you crowdfund, you got to give a GoFundMe or Kickstarter or whomever 4% of your money, and then you got to give PayPal or Square another 4% of your money. So 4% of 2 million, 4 plus 4 is about 8. 8% of $2 million is almost $100,000. That's why I resisted crowdfunding, because I felt that was too much money to be given away for the sake of convenience. But because we only got 250, I'm going to go ahead and crowdfund. And I'm probably going to start it on March 1st. So I want y'all to be on the lookout. And I'm going to see if crowdfunding and money will get us to the $2 million so we can go ahead and snatch this property before somebody else buys it. Because the longer we wait, the more the forces of evil come in. And they see what I'm trying to do. Okay? And they'll snatch that sucker right from up under us and don't even do nothing with it. Just sit on it so you can have it. Okay, so we're going to try to get the school. That's what we've been working on. Brothers and sisters who want to work at the school, send me your resume, please. We've received about 600. I want more of them, especially in the sciences. I haven't been getting enough from science teachers as well as those who are in agricultural science, hydroponic science, solar power energy, robotics, video game programming. I want to teach our young men how to make their own video games so they can stop playing the ones coming from Korea. Okay? So if you have any expertise in the sciences, send your resume. But even if you're not into the science, send your resume. As I always say, we need math teachers and history teachers and African language teachers. We need science and social studies, but we also need people who can sew. We need people who can cook. Okay, we need people who can plant. We need people who can do natural hair. We need people who can prepare raw and vegan food. Okay, because the school is going to be 80% raw and vegan food. All right? I didn't say 100%. Just once in a while, I'm going to eat some meat. I don't care if the vegetarians like it or not. I'm going to eat some meat once in a while. Okay? So, send the resume, brothers and sisters. For those of you who haven't heard me talk about the Frederick Douglass and the Marcus Garvey Academy before, the 6 sciences that the school is going to be based on is going to be number 1, agricultural and agronomical science. We want to teach the children how to grow with their hands, how to live off their own planting. Why? Because too many black folk, everybody in America, but especially us. Remember, when America get a cold, we get the flu, right? 85% of us, we're dying from diseases related to what we eat. Okay, so we got to go back to a plant-based diet. Okay, we got away from plant and we went to meat. And how do we get away from plant and we went to meat? Because what happened in America, if you go back to the 1920s, if you were not a well-off family, you could not afford meat. You understand? You couldn't have steak. You was beans and rice and vegetables. Meat was reserved for those who could afford it. So as America began to improve and the so-called middle class began to grow, And we call it so-called why? Because as you know now, there ain't no middle class in America.
That's right.
Black or white.
That's right.
There's haves and have-nots.
That's right.
Rich and poor. Middle class is a poor person with a master's degree.
That's right.
And I'm just being honest with you. Okay? You have a single mother. She's a social worker or a nurse. Okay, she making $50,000 a year. Not bad. But she got 4 children. So once she get finished paying for medical, paying for daycare, paying for school, guess what? She ain't middle class. She poverty line.
That's right.
But because she's making 50 grand and because she got a master's degree, America likes to play slick and they only judge your class status based by your education and your occupation. Let me say that again. They totally ignore what you make. They judge your class status. If you don't believe me, do your research. They judge your class status by education and occupation. So you telling me, Dr. Umar, if I have a master's degree and I'm working at a job that looks like I'm making money, but I'm not, I'll still be considered middle class. Yeah. That's how you make the middle class look big. That's why they want everybody to go to college and get a degree, because they can say the middle class is growing because you're looking at the amount of people who got their master's degree. You're not looking at whether or not those people with a master's degree can find a job after they graduate. You're just looking at whether they got the degree or not. Okay? So the middle class has been a fabrication, and especially for black folks. The average middle class black person is 2 paychecks away from poverty.
That's right.
And that's because as we get more education, we tend to live more outside of our means, and we got to stop doing that.
That's right.
Okay? Making a little bit more money should be a good thing, but with a lot of black folk, it's a bad thing because you upgrade the car, upgrade the house. Nothing was wrong with the one you had. But you like keeping up with the Joneses. And the Joneses run the bank.
That's right.
Okay? You got to stop trying to keep up with the Joneses.
That's right.
All right? There was an economic study that was done on black folk that came out about a year or 2 ago. And it said black people are different from everyone else in terms of our spending. They said we, more than any other group in America, more than the Anglo-Saxon, more than the European Jew, more than the Arab, the East Indian, the Latino, more than everyone else in America, the black person is more likely to buy because it's available, not because they need it.
That's right.
You ever notice that look at our clothing. If you ever notice, clothing that's popular to black folk, it will come out with a new style like once a month, once every other week. You already bought these Air Jordans, they got another pair coming out because they know you buy just because it's available. If they knew you bought because you need it, it wouldn't come out so fast. But they say black folk will buy just because it's there, and because they like to brag about the labels. You saw what Ralph Lauren Polo did, right? Remember, he used to have a small horse. He would have got a big one just for black folk. Right? When Air Jordan first came out, he had a small little Airman on the back. When black folk love to brag about their labels, they put a big Airman right on the back for you, so you can show off. Okay? A pair of sneakers that you paid $150 for, that's made in a third world country by children less than the age of 10 who make $1 a day, and the total production cost was only $6.95. You spent $150 for a $6.95 pair of shoes. That makes you an idiot. You can't even blame capitalism for that. Okay? With capitalism, twice as much is normally acceptable. They pay 50% to make it. They'll charge you another 50% to sell it. Okay? Maybe 100% is better. They pay 50% to make it. They upmarked it by 100%. But with Air Jordan, that thing is upmarked about 300 times. And you still running, you buy it because it's the label. And the reason we're so in love with expensive things, black folk, this is something we've never confronted since the days of slavery. The reason why black people are so in love with expensive things is because subconsciously we think it adds value to who we are. That Mercedes-Benz is not just about having a Mercedes-Benz. It makes me feel like I'm worth more now because I have it. Those of us who've been to college, what do you remember about college? The white kids who had money would look broke. And the black kids who were broke looked like they had money. You notice that? Why is it that the white kids who had money would look broke and the black kids without none living off their student loans look like they had it going on? Right. It's because we buy to make ourselves feel like we have worth. That's why we buy. I see another sister came. We need a seat. I see brothers. If there's any sisters back there, please send them on in so we can get them a seat. Okay? There's also a room up here. And it's carpet on the ground, so brothers, ain't no problem taking a seat. if we need to. But as the ladies come, gentlemen, just sit them on in. Make sure they have a seat. One time I went to a lecture, they had grandma standing up. I said, I know we crazy. Okay? So we got to get our economics together, brothers and sisters. One of our biggest shortcomings when we talk about how far we've come, we got to go back to 1964. We got to go back to the Civil Rights Bill. We have to look at the Civil Rights Bill in-depthly to see what it did and what it did not do for African people, okay? One of the things that it did not do for African people was give us an economic opportunity. The Civil Rights Bill included no economic legislation. Let me say that again. The Civil Rights Bill included what? No economic legislation. In other words, what am I talking about? Some of you went to the movies and you saw Selma. In Selma, there was a scene when Dr. King was in jail with Ralph Abernathy. He said, what are we doing, Ralphie? We're fighting for the right for black men to sit at the lunch counter with white folk. We're fighting for the right for black men to sit at the lunch counter with white folk. But what good is it, Ralphie, if he can sit at the lunch counter, but he don't earn enough from his job to be able to pay for the burger? Do y'all see the difference? We fought for access, but we didn't fight for access to opportunity. What good is it that you're able to live in an upper middle class neighborhood, but if you can't afford it, what difference does it make? In other words, the other side of the promise of civil rights was not just access, but the economic ability to make it real for you. And that's where we struggle at as a people, that economic access. And guess what? It's going to get worse, brothers and sisters. It's going to get worse. You know, President Obama just signed a law, I think it was an executive order that's going to bring 5 million illegal immigrants to America. I think they've already started. I don't have to tell you what that was for. I ain't got to tell you that was for, but I'll give you a historical parallel. In 1890, at the end of Reconstruction, the United States government, instead of hiring black men, formerly enslaved Africans, instead of hiring black men to work on the railroads, guess what they did? They imported 2 million immigrants. They came from China, they came from East India, they came from other places. Why are you importing 2 million immigrants when you have millions of black men newly free looking for work? Because they wanted to make sure they would stifle any opportunity for black progress by preventing you from having a job. That's exactly why they make it so difficult for brothers and sisters who come out of jail. They get a second chance at life. How do you not go back to jail when you don't even get welfare because you've been to jail? You can't get food stamps because you've been to jail. You can't get a student loan or a grant because you've been to jail. You can't get Section 8 housing. You can't even get a little small apartment in the projects because you went to jail. And guess what? Your mother or father, if they live in public housing, you ain't allowed to go back and live with them because you have a felony. And guess what? One of the strategies they use to take over the black community along with the charter school and everything else is they spy on mama because you got an ankle brace on your leg anyway. And the minute they catch you sleeping in that house, next thing you know, they taking it from mama.